outsider a couple of years ago, right? So I want to maybe just take a minute or two to thank three sets of people and appreciate them, because I think they're central to our work, right? The first is, of course, our community, right? All of you, you're the, if I can use 10th standard biology, you're the sinoatrial node to our hearts, right? Or the pacemaker. You keep us going, literally, right? As we've said in so many calls, we wouldn't be able to do this without you, right? So I think I speak on behalf of the entire organization that we're extremely grateful to you, right? The second set of people is, of course, is, I don't have a good label, but essentially people we work with, people we learn from, other human rights organizations in India, the digital rights organization in India, journalists, right? People who reach out to us for interviews and give us information or learn from us, and we learn from you. All of you are in some way or the other furthering digital rights causes and inspiring us in many ways as well, right? So I do want to appreciate the role that all of that this section of people also play. Like I said, I don't have a good name to sort of bucket them under. And thirdly, I just want to come to, of course, the IFF staff and our off councils. It's been, particularly over the last couple of months, and of course over the last 1.5 2 years that I've been here, it's been inspiring every day to see people just coming in, working hard every day to protect our digital rights, and working along those lines across with various challenges. Right now, again, that's not to say that there aren't any challenges and we're not resting on our laurels. I think there is, of course, scope for improvement. There is, of course, scope for us to do more. And with your support, we will, we absolutely aim to keep doing that. Right. So with that, I will now sort of pass the mic over to our litigation team to start with. So Radhika, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Radhika Roy, and I'm the litigation counsel at IFF. I hope you're having a splendid evening, and thank you so much for joining us in the middle of the week. I'm also hoping your 2024 has started on an interesting note, because ours sure has. We've been on a roller coaster, and I'll just let you in on some of the updates that we have for you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'll start off with the biggest piece of news, which is the split verdict in the IT rules case before the Bombay High Court. Last year, on behalf of Association of Indian Magazines, we had challenged the constitutionality of the 2023 amendment to the IT rules, which basically permits a fact-check unit of the union government to identify fake or false or misleading online content related to the business of the central government and then demand its removal. So imagine you write something criticizing any government policy. Your content can actually be taken down on the basis of it being fake or false or misleading, even if it's you just pretty much giving your opinion. So this FCU business certainly has terrifying implications for free speech and press freedom, which is why we challenged it. So the matter was heard over the course of last year, and advocate Gautam Bhatia, who's an off-counsel at IFF, argued on behalf of AIM. The Bombay High Court finally delivered its verdict on January 31st, with Justice Gautam Patel striking down the amendment and Justice Neela Gokhale upholding it. So we've clearly sort of reached an impasse, and this is now going to be heard by a third judge, on the basis of whose opinion we'll be arriving at a final decision. There is a parallel issue which is also taking place. So during the hearings, the union government had assured the court that they would not operationalize the FCU till a decision was made. Because there is no final judgment as of now, the union government is being iffy about extending this assurance. So as of now, we are actually at the stage of arguing whether this assurance or statement as such should continue or not. Arguments on this will take place at the end of the month. I promise it's very exciting stuff, and we shall keep you updated on the same. Next slide, please. So, you guys must remember that the NewsClick fiasco happened a few months back, where police authorities went haywire with raiding homes and collecting phones and laptops of several journalists and other persons who were associated in any capacity with NewsClick. So, this brings me to another case that we are dealing with, which is the search and seizure of digital devices. We are representing Foundation for Media Professionals, and we have sought for clear legal guidelines governing the process of such searches and seizures. The legal vacuum which exists as of now allows authorities to potentially carry out questionable actions, which includes compelling folks to grant access to their mobile phones. So, in our last date of hearing, the Supreme Court had directed the Union government to formalize the final guidelines ASAP. And in the interim, the government has assured the court that they will duly follow the procedures which are laid down in the 2020 CBI crime manual. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as you can see, there's been a bit of ups and downs, but we've also kept going with some of our OG matters, which is like our challenge to the facial recognition technology before the Madras High Court. It's finally reaching final hearing stages, along with our challenges to the lack of information vis-a-vis the Arogya Setu app. We've also faced some setbacks, such as the dismissal of our petitions regarding phone data retention and dismissal of a challenge to the Criminal Procedure Identification Act, and the very slow or practically like no progress in Tanul Thakur's website blocking matter. But we promise not to get deterred and just push through. I now hand over the metaphorical mic to my colleague Gayatri, and she'll take you through our 2024 updates. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Gayatri. I'm Associate Litigation Counsel at the Internet Freedom Foundation. If you want a quick run through of our updates from 2023, please scan the QR code. I promise we are not recording you. Next slide, please. Next slide, also, please. So, despite our efforts, 2023 did not conclude with a victory in our battle against internet shutdowns. The Supreme Court, despite issuing notice in 2023, was not inclined to entertain a miscellaneous application that we had filed seeking compliance with the directions in Anuradha Bhasin based on right to information responses. Our argument centered on assuring compliance with the court's previous directives rather than reopening or contesting the original case. We highlighted previous instances where similar applications were entertained to enforce the Supreme Court's guidelines, particularly those regarding safeguarding individuals from prosecution under Section 66A, which was struck down in Shreya Singhal versus Union of India. However, despite these submissions, the bench maintained its stance that the miscellaneous application was not maintainable. Uh, Ultimately, we ended up withdrawing the miscellaneous application. This outcome was indeed disappointing, particularly as the miscellaneous application held significant implications, particularly in light of India's notorious reputation as the internet shutdowns capital of the world. Nevertheless, we remain committed to our fight for digital rights, undeterred by setbacks. On a positive note, in the beginning of this year, the Foundation for Media Professionals, represented by IFF, in a miscellaneous application seeking publication of orders passed by the review committee in Jammu and Kashmir. Uh, During the proceedings, Justice Gavai orally observed that the review committee orders could not be kept in a cupboard. The court held that prima facie, while the deliberations of the review committee need not be made public, the orders of the review committee should be uploaded in the public domain. This holds significant importance considering the ongoing internet shutdowns that we are observing. This development marks a particular victory for transparency, as orders of the review committee are seldom published. Given the lack of accountability surrounding internet shutdowns and uh, the indiscriminate issuance of internet suspension orders, The publication of these orders will prevent arbitrary decisions without proper consideration to their intended objects. We also have some very new exciting projects in the works on internet shutdowns. Stay tuned for more updates in this area. Next slide, please. So, as you can tell, we have an exciting 2024 planned for you. Uh, 2024, IFF shall be focusing on maintaining its existing docket and ensuring that our existing matters reach their intended conclusions. We also aim towards diversifying our docket, and we're committed to fostering collaboration among legal professionals through open networks, uh, enabling coordinated action at the state level, and by facilitating knowledge sharing and active participation, we aim to maximize our advocacy efforts. Next slide, please. The DPDC is a pioneering legal clinic in India that is dedicated towards protecting the rights of journalists. Its primary goal is to provide a comprehensive one-stop shop to journalists who face legal threats due to their work. The clinic offers a range of services, including pro bono legal advice and full-service legal representation. Since its inception, we have provided assistance to 68 journalists. Next slide, please. In 2023, IFF filed 295 RTI requests, including 66 first appeals and 2 second appeals before the CIC. This marked our departure from our goal of reducing the volumes of RTI requests. However, sustained efforts to monitor developments in digital rights, coupled with inadequate proactive disclosure of information, necessitated this shift. For 2024, IFF will reassess the strategy based on outcomes, but will maintain focus on key objectives, advocating for policy or judgments mandating disclosure of comments in public consultation, pushing for publication of orders and statistical information relating to online censorship and surveillance, enhancing IFF's RTI services to better serve digital rights researchers. I now hand over the metaphorical mic to our Associate Policy Counsel, Disha, who is also the better half of the transparency vertical. Over to you, Disha.
Thank you, Gayatri, for that phenomenal update on transparency as well as litigation. My name is Disha. I'm an associate policy counsel here at IFF, and I'm one half of the policy team. So I think we can go to the next slide. It's just me who is awesome. We can stay on this slide where I take you through the policy team's updates in numbers. Let's keep it simple. In 2023, we engaged in a total of 9 pre-legislative consultations. We sent about 60 letters to a host of public and private institutions, basically reminding them that the Constitution exists and Puttaswamy principles and what they are. We ran 2 large-scale campaigns, including IFF's flagship Save the Internet campaign to hold net neutrality and hold the line on that. And our new project, which is the Let Us Chill campaign, we can stick with the previous slide when I'm just overviewing the numbers. Awesome, thank you. So with Let Us Chill, I'll come to that in a bit. More in numbers is that we've released 3 first reads, including the DPDP Bill 2023, Telecom Act, and the Broadcasting Services Regulation Act bill at the stage, thankfully. We authored about 16 statements and 3 legislative briefs corresponding to 3 parliamentary sessions. And that's been a hectic year for us in recap. Now we can go to the next slide where I take us through some key updates from policy's end. So on the Broadcasting Services Regulation Bill, which is not yet an act, the consultation process for that closed off on the 15th of January. And to that end, we ran a campaign called Let Us Chill. Someone from the IFF team should send you a website link. We've created a website basically enumerating how the Broadcasting Services Bill, which propagates arbitrary censorship in entertainment and for journalism, impacts different categories of individuals and organizations. And we ran a campaign where we invited everyone to write emails to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And we closed it on the 15th of January with about actually more than 2,000 signatures. Next slide, please. Another one of our notable consultations have been on the dark patterns regulation, where we made actually a community-led submission to the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, and hundreds of you reported instances of dark patterns that you've noted in your lives, and you helped us build a tracker, which has actually helped us to build a relationship with the ministry itself and to make meaningful submissions to the regulation. We're also very pleased to report that the revised version of the dark pattern regulation actually reflects some of the comments that we were able to make with your help. So congratulations to all of us on that. Next slide, please. Another one of our engagements has been on the Telecommunication Act, which unfortunately was, just bulldozed through the parliament in the 2023 winter session. Amid absolute utter chaos, we were on the case immediately. We published a first read on the act. We did a briefing call, and we raised some multimedia awareness campaigns around the draconian provisions and the surveillance provisions of the act. By which I mean we did memes and reels and more memes, and all of that is on our socials. So check those out. Next slide, please. More rapid and short-term responses from our end have been statements and threads. We have made several statements through the year, published statements on recurring internet shutdowns in Punjab, West Bengal, Bihar, and with support of the lit team, reminded them of transparency requirements to be met. We stood firm against demands by telecom service providers for a fair share when it comes to OTT services, and we held the line again on net neutrality on that. We did a statement on the banning of the BBC documentary, India, the Modi Question, and they reminded the government of the lack of transparency around blocking orders that they passed, the attack of freedom and privacy that this is all a part of, the intimidation and harassment of the press and the journalists involved, and the device seizures that the team just took us through. All of these procedural safeguards had to be brought in line multiple times last year. Other than that, we expressed disappointment over the exemption of CERT-in, the Computer Emergency Response Team from METI. It was exempted from the RTI Act, which weakens and dilutes the provisions of the RTI Act and the impact that had on transparency and our right to information. And then we also kickstarted a hashtag for elections called Do the Rights Thing, where we go through the human rights impact assessments undertaken by platforms like Meta, and we want to continue doing that in this year as well. Next slide, please. On Parliament, which has just been its own, like I can go on and on about the Parliament sessions from last year. Winter session was, we still have whiplash from it, but we sustained our advocacy and campaigning efforts around digital rights through all parliamentary sessions. They were all exhausting. We were tuned into Sansad Live for hours and sometimes till 10 p.m. in the night. Winter session was difficult. We still have fresh memories from that. We did write a statement on the suspension of opposition members of parliament and the passage of certain laws without meaningful debate and opposition in the houses, about sneaking laws into supplementary lists. And we tried to generally just keep up with the chaos. We also release legislative briefs before the parliament session begins, targeted towards the members of the parliament if they want to refresh or guide into digital rights and what they mean and how they can be meaningfully spoken about in the parliament. Throughout the sessions, we live track the parliament and also note significant answers to questions that are related to digital rights and freedoms. And for the budget session, we do a specific targeted analysis, which we also have just concluded, on allocations made to METI, MIB, Ministry of Home Affairs, Department of Telecommunications, anything that can impact our digital rights and freedoms. And we also have written to the Standing Committee, which is a parliamentary tool, on multiple occasions, basically helping them help the parliament. Next slide, please. So everything we did in 2023 was just the tip of the iceberg. There is just so much more. Like I said, 60 letters, all of them are, can be spoken about at length themselves. Please scan the QR code to find out more. This may be a rickroll. I'm not promising anything, but it'll be fun anyway. Next slide, please. Let's now jump into the plans that we have for 2024. Some of our key priorities will continue to be our key priorities. That is a part of permanent roster of work for us at IFF. This includes, of course, consultations and engagement with the government on various policies. We also want to do more community-led engagements with these interventions, more emailers, more campaigns, basically involve the community as much as we can, because we found out that that really does make an impact and makes, things more refined that way. We will continue to feed and revamp some of our existing projects. As you can see here, the Plug the Breach project and the Project Panoptic, both of which one tracks data breaches in India and the other tracks facial recognition technology systems installed in India. So that those will be our continued endeavors. Next slide, please. More on what's new that we were going to be doing this year. So it's election year. That's a conversation difficult to escape. But fortunately, we have kicked off our endeavors and our tasks on the election year with a win. A tender was floated by NIC on voter surveillance, basically proposing that FRT systems, facial recognition technologies, drones, CCTV cameras be deployed at polling booths and live streamed to keep a check on polling practices. And when this came to light to us, IFF flagged it immediately with the ECI and the NIC, saying this is horrendous. This is a horrendous breach of privacy and can lead to exclusion and make our elections undemocratic. And noting that ECI withdrew, or rather asked the NIC to withdraw that tender. So that was a good note to start our election campaigning and election-oriented work on. Next slide, please. Continuing our efforts on elections, we prepared a digital rights manifesto, which is essentially a charter of demands that we have from the incoming government to make digital rights and freedoms a key governance priority. And we're at the moment gathering expert inputs on this document, and we'll be sending it out to political parties soon. Another thing that we're continuing to do is an open letter to political parties and electoral candidates on the use, or rather misuse, of deepfake technologies during and in the run-up to the elections, asking them to declare that they will not use it to create synthetic media or misleading media so as to, influence voters in a negative way. Right now, it's garnered about hundreds of signatures from the public, and it's with the members of the parliament to also maybe sign and endorse, hopefully. It's still open, so hopefully, if you guys are interested, we'd really appreciate more signatures on this letter. And our third ring for now is larger demands to the Election Commission, basically telling them of, how digital rights can play into an elections and how can we make it more free, fair, and democratic. Next slide, please. Now, I think the meat of it all, DigiYatra, has been an exciting, or more like frustrating project that we've been keeping on since last year, and we will continue to develop refined work on this. I mean, there's no surprises here. If you've been on Twitter or any social media, you've already seen the full ruckus created around non-consensual signing up or sign-ons for DigiYatra done at airports. We've already kickstarted work on that, writing to basically ministries as well as the private airports and DigiYatra Foundation involved in all of this. Luckily, we've been able to get some eyes on this. We've gotten attention of the DigiYatra Foundation CEO, who's been, reassuring us that it's all privacy-oriented. We'll see about that. And we've been having some conversations with journalists about this as well. But this is not all. We're planning to dial up our advocacy efforts. We are going to be launching a Know Your Rights leaflet to empower passengers at the site of the airport with what they can say and do to avoid being roped in against their will and their consent into signing up for DigiYatra, and basically telling them why this is a technology to be rejected and resisted. Apart from this, we're also going to be launching a line of merch that can be a new airport fit to let everyone know that you will reject DigiYatra and you are not on board with it. That was a pun. And as a thank you to all of you for joining us today on this call, everyone who's tuned into Zoom, we want to send you the first batch of this merch that's never been seen before. So please expect an email from our end, and thank you for your unwavering support. I'll just move on from this now. Next slide. There have been many new miscellaneous areas of work. We will be introducing new projects, first of which is our assessment of the use of artificial intelligence by governments specifically. We want to track the use of emerging tech like AI and ML in various sectors like governance, urban administration, welfare delivery, surveillance, policing, And we want to see and demand that these algorithms be kept transparent, institutions made accountable. We want to push back against automated decision making, specifically in the delivery of basic human rights and entitlements like ration, etc. Apart from that, we surely have some things in the pipeline to engage with health data specifically and digital interventions in public health. And apart from this, we want to explore digital public infrastructures, apps floated by state governments and their data collection practices. And in general, all of our upcoming projects are built with a hope to remain and make our work more intersectional and more human, like more holistic in terms of human right assessment. And we want to touch upon grassroots schemes like Manrega or the public distribution system and community health schemes, and make that assessment more holistic and intersectional. So that was it. Sorry for going on and on. There's just too much been happening and too much in the pipeline for policy team, but that concludes my updates. I will now hand off to Ashlesh. And thank you and enjoy the rest of the call.
Hello, thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Disha. Also, like Disha said, people who joined us today here in the call, they get our fresh Digiyatra merge. So everyone who's uh, watching the live stream and they are not in the Zoom call and you're members, this is what you get for losing out. And this is a good lesson for why you should join IFF's quarterly calls. Uh, yeah, Anjali, next slide. Yeah, so in 2023, we kept our promise of more events and community engagements, especially our in-person events. We did three big in-person events. We held the second edition of FOCON earlier in 2023, which united legal and journalistic minds to delve into challenges of free expression in the digital age. Then we had the fifth edition of Privacy Supreme, which marked 6 years of the Puttaswamy judgment. On August 24, we hosted the event at IIC, and over 160 of you showed up. Thank you for that. Uh, the third event that we did was the the pilot edition of the Glassroom exhibition. This we did in collaboration with Code Studios. The exhibition is curated by Tactical Tech, and we've been working with them since over the last year to like translate and localize their exhibits for Indian audience. And we plan to do more of these in 2024. Next slide. Along with physical events, we also hosted a bunch of virtual events, like more than 13 virtual events, including 7 briefing calls around data protection bill, broadcasting services bill, telecom bill. Most of these are acts now. We hosted briefing calls on Digiyatra, IT amendment rules, among other things. Next slide. In 2023, we picked up a lot of campaigns from past and also launched a few new ones. Just to run through them, we launched Keep Us Online, marking the 100 days of internet shutdown in Manipur. Then we got a sequel we didn't ask for, Save the Internet 2.0, which we did, which we ran with our broader community. And the last one was Let Us Chill, which was a campaign around the broadcasting services bill. Next slide. For more detailed updates of what we were up to in 2023, you can scan this QR code or you can find the link in the chat soon. Now we'll move on to what we are up to in 2024. So as we were discussing, events are great for community engagement and we only want to do more and more of them. So along with our flagship events, we will continue our partner events with Tactical Tech, News Laundry, Goet, among others. We are also exploring newer and smaller scale formats, think like film screenings, office meetups with coffees and baked goodies. This is still under discussion. And also maybe zine making workshops. Next slide. And picking up on campaigns, microsites, and action packs. While 2023 saw us launching more of these, this year we want to focus on sustaining these campaigns, building literacy materials, events, merch, maybe even tableaus around these, while also focusing on accessibility and translation of these resources. The tableaus part was a joke. We can't probably afford a tableau. Uh, but I'm especially excited about hashtag keep us online, as Gayatri said, wink, wink, watch out. Next slide. Just a general reminder that IFF is now on Blue Sky and Mastodon because uh, Twitter is Twitter. So you can scan the QR code here and join our communities on Mastodon and Blue Sky. In 2024, we also want to explore more of short form videos from 90 seconds to 10 seconds, RIP. I'm also personally excited about refreshing our volunteers program and building a team of super volunteers for 2024. Next slide. And now I will hand over to my colleague, Purvai. Over to you.
Thank you, Shreesh. Hello, everyone. I'm Purvai, Community and Fundraising Associate at IFF. I'm really sorry you keep seeing new faces each member's call. But thank you for your time for joining us here today. It is only because of members and donors like you that IFF is sustained through the toughest of times. Um, Internet Freedom Foundation, as most of you know, has been a people's movement since day one. Individual donors like you have consistently stood with us over the years. Thank you so much for that. In 2023, can I request Anjanai to move on to the next slide? Yeah, in 2023, our overall income dropped by 30% compared to 2022, totaling of 70 lakhs in donations from members, one-time donors, and organizational donors. And our total expenses for the years amounted for 89 lakhs, with 80% allocated to staff salaries and remaining to day-to-day operational costs. To increase individual giving this year, we hosted 3 fundraisers and a birthday fundraiser hosted by a friend, Nemo. Thank you so much, Nemo. And in August, as part of the annual membership drive, we were able to sign up to 28 new members. In December 2023, we launched a year-end fundraiser to help us bridge the widening gap of 23 lakhs between our income and expenditure. Nemo, a longtime friend of IFF, hosted a match fundraiser for their birthday on December 29th, and they were able to raise up to 3 lakhs for IFF. Thank you so much for that. Next slide, please. Looking ahead to 2024, we aspire to engage more community members in fundraising efforts. And to facilitate this, we will be focusing on fixing and streamlining a few pressing issues with our donor tech, mostly with ERP Next and Razorpay for an uninterrupted inflow of kind donations made by you guys. Last year, we faced several challenges that hindered our ability to grow our fundraising efforts. But this is something we will proactively look after this year as we seek more fun ways of raising funds and support in our day-to-day efforts of defending digital liberties and freedoms. And next slide, please, Anjana. And speaking of new beginnings, we could not be more thrilled to announce the inaugural cohort of the Freedom Innovation Fellowship. This fellowship will train a cohort of 5 young lawyers for 15 months in strategic litigation and policy engagement. And we look forward to welcoming the fellows. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is how you can help us. Next slide, please. Oh yes, we have new merch. You can buy a cool and most fun merch through Frankly Wearing's online storefront. All the proceeds go towards helping IFF scale its work and fight for our right to privacy and defending digital freedoms. Thank you so much. I will now hand over to Prateek.
Okay, thank you. I saved the, in the spirit of it being Valentine's Day yesterday, I saved the love fest for earlier on, but I'll come to the more serious stuff for now, right? I think as Purvai sort of pointed out, and if you look at the broader environment in the country, I think there is certainly reason for concern, for worry, and as an organization, we want to continue to be able to doing the kind of work that we do. But to continue doing that, we need financial stability at at the end of the day, right? To be able to do that. So this is, I think it's traditionally how I think we close the live stream part of most of our calls, but I just want to reiterate that message today, right? Because it's I think more important than ever for organizations like IFF to be able to sustain, defend, and advance digital rights in India, as in the current in the current environment, right? So for those of you who are members and already donors, thank you very much. For those of you who are not, please consider becoming one, or if you yourself do not have the means, please ask your family members who may have the means to do so, to continue to consider doing that. As I think some of the numbers that we didn't get into was, if you look at our current member base, it's also something that has reduced over the years, and I think for us to get stability, we need to at least double our current number of subscribers, and more if we need to expand and be able to do the work that we're kind of doing, right? So with that, sort of closing off the live stream with a call to action for everyone. If you can support us, please do support us. If you can recruit more people to support us, that would be something that we'll appreciate as well. With that,